How are you?
Let me know.
We had a person who had you got another car? Yes, everybody here was get a flat tire and get a car.
Guys like Peter Rosenberg.
He get a flat tire and get a car.
How are you?
We are entertained.
You got the right blood. He's just drifting around without us.
Yeah. Just throws after all day long. You don't know who she's talking.
I was excited to hear that you got a background.
I don't think so. Hi. Michael Holler. Nice to meet you.
Oh, okay.
We'll break them in. We'll break them.
Oh my God.
We've been known to be a little rowdy.
We had a new bar open up yesterday. Cookie shop.
Folks, it's 10 a.m. Tuesday morning. We're going to start our monthly board meeting. Beverly, if you call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Dr. O'Halloran.
Here.
Mr. Emster.
Hello.
Dr. Robinson. Here. Ms. Stone. Present. Mr. Dorn.
Here.
Ms. Odell. Mr. Jones.
I'm present.
Mr. Lutakis.
Here.
Mr. Cody.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Let's. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Question?
Chairman, yes, I obviously abstained from voting on the minutes because I was not present, but I would like to add something. There was a statement in the minutes about some of the commissioners not being at the meeting to vote on you were trying to get the vacancies filled, I believe, Jay?
Yes, ma'am.
And it said that some of us had left early to go to the NACO conference. I wanted, for the record, to know that some of us had committee meetings early, and that's why we didn't just go early for the sake of going early to a conference. We had committee meetings that Friday morning. So just for the record.
Okay.
I had committee meeting that Friday too. If you want to put that. That's fine.
I think we're gonna have to hold the county feet to the fire since they work for us.
Does that include the city of Savannah, Mr. Dorn?
Oh, no, let's not go there.
We don't want to go that far. All those in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Let's move on to action items. Mr. Mike, you can start us off.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issue is requesting board approval for coverages of marine insurance program via Sterling Seacrest Partners for the protection and indemnity, P&I liability, access liability, and hull coverage programs. As discussed and presented in our fire insurance broker during the June board meeting, cap protection and indemnity, P&I liability, access liability, and hull coverage programs are now near renewal. CAT has received proposals from our insurance broker, Sterling Seacrest Partners. So the recommendation is that the board provide approval for these coverages of this program.
Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. We have to do motion second, and I'll take
That's
questions.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, Commissioner Stone?
Just real quickly, the increase in the rates, is that pretty normal at this point?
Is Erica here? Oh, yes, Erica's directly behind me, so I can't see her.
Hi, I'm here. Yes, ma'am. So there's some details in there regarding the increases on the rates. We increased the limits on one of our ferries due to the rehab, which was a $1 million increase. So part of the 13% was due to that, mostly. And then some claims experience over the 5 years of the policy since we've had it with INU. And the general market, it's not a soft market anymore, it's a hard market. It's very volatile for marine as well. So there's some small increases on that part, but very
Well, I just noticed the hull increases and that kind of thing. I just wanted to know if that was pretty standard. I mean, being mindful of the budget.
Yes, ma'am. So the hull would be the physical damage, and the value increase directly relates to the hull increase. Yes, ma'am.
So if you fix it and make it better.
You pay more to
you pay
keep
more.
it. Yeah.
Seems contradictory.
It does. So-
Well, it's worth $1 million more now than it was. Right?
So it would have been cheaper for
Probably,
us.
yeah.
Never mind.
Don't break that down.
Yeah, we'll leave that there, Bill.
I just wanted to make sure that we,
Yeah, and it's gonna be fluctuating up and down every time we do something to the, and we have 2 new rehabs coming up. So I'm
Well,
sure
yeah.
that's gonna add to it for next year's numbers.
We have a new vehicle coming at
Yeah.
some
We
point
also have a
too,
new
so there'll
vehicle,
be
and
another
that'll
increase.
be into the next year's funding. We'll have to add it when it comes, just like getting a new car, you gotta add it to your policy.
That's about 2
And they will give us the number.
Is this just on boats? Does this affect,
Ships.
not the docks? This has nothing to do with the docks?
No, this is strictly on the ships themselves.
Oh.
Clint? I saw your hand.
And then part of this is reimbursed by the hotel motel tax. I can't really remember how that's figured out, but
Who are we
the
looking for
salmon
reimbursement
ability-
from?
It's,
Oh, it's,
so it's 100% reimbursable from our funding partners.
Got it.
That include the SAMI at about 60%, and then the Trade Center in the Westin.
Got it. And then I just noticed this. What is a liquor liability exclusion?
That means if you can't serve alcohol,
Oh,
basically.
all
Yeah.
right. But it has no
But we're
effect
not,
with the...
it's not recreational, so.
any other questions?
You
All
can't-
those in
you-
favor of,
You can't carry a drink on board because the minute you leave River Street, you're out of the go
That's
cup
what
at
I'm
all.
thinking, yeah.
yeah, but you know what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So I'm
They
like,
pour it into their other
That's
cups
right.
and take it with
I
them.
mean, that's kind of an interesting question. So
But you
you
still
can't
cover.
pour it on the boat,
I don't care.
but
Cover.
if I do bring my bourbon on the boat and then something happens, is that under the liquor liability?
He
Well,
just
I mean,
covers this, right?
all claims are complex, so it's hard to
Yeah,
really
right.
answer that. That just means that obviously you can't serve alcohol on the boat, basically. And if a claim arises out of that, then our coverage would not apply to that claim.
Okay.
Yours would have to, since you caused the problem, you broke the law.
Yes. Any other questions? I'm gonna vote on the motion to do our hull and indemnity insurance. All those in favor, raise their hands. It's unanimous. Opposed? No abstaining. Okay, Mike, continue on as you.
Okay. Second action
You're on a roll.
item, the request of board approval for the removal of 12 bus stops located in the town of Thunderbolt, which is outside the current Chatham County Service District for transit services. CAT has provided transit service within Chatham County since 1987 under provisions of a local act of the Georgia General Assembly. Service to and from and within the town limits of the town of Thunderbolt by service to 12 stops. So this change will be budget neutral, time savings associated with removal of bus stops added to driver recovery time at the beginning and end of each run. We're also we're on the calendar for their September 11th town meeting, so we can get public input before the period when we actually pull the stops. So staff recommends board approval of removal of the 12 stops located outside the special service district in the town of Thunderbolt.
Move to approve?
Second?
I'll second.
She had a question.
Thank you.
I do.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
these 12 will go somewhere else, correct?
No.
No?
We're just, the bus will still,
The bus route.
the bus route will change.
It just won't be.
We'll just have to pull stops up because they're not in the service district.
Okay, because I, during my prior term on this board, have been very concerned about the lack of shelters in the unincorporated area, especially out near Montgomery, Bewley, Whitfield Park, all in there. I mean, I see people standing out there in the hot sun. So if we're taking some up, does that in the future allow for us to put more bus stops in other places?
Are there shelters at each of these stops?
Shelters,
Some of the
those stops.
equipment.
Do we have shelters there?
I think these particular shops,
Steve
stops,
says no.
they don't have
There
shelters.
aren't
There are no shelters.
That's the street.
Okay.
It's houses,
Yeah.
there's no shelter.
They're pole, just
So,
stakes
so
in the
will
side.
it allow us some funding to put up shelters where in other
There's no
places?
revenue gain, we're just not stopping.
Not because of pulling these stops, but we are putting a list together.
I mean, there's stops already. I mean, Bill, there's stops. But what my question is, if we're taking up shelters,
There are no shelters.
oh.
No, they're
That's what
they're
he
just
said.
Oh, I'm
no
sorry.
shelters.
That's okay.
I
That's all right.
apologize. I apologize then. Okay.
And we do have 10 shelters on order that are coming.
Well, I
in.
knew I read in there about shelters, so
Mhm.
obviously I jumped the gun. I apologize.
No, I didn't know either. I'm glad you asked because I assumed there was just, I only know the one stop by the high school. I've driven by that one.
Okay.
The rest I was unsure of myself. But we do have a little loop in the back there that goes to Savannah State, so that's why
Okay,
those
I
are
didn't
being
realize these
maintained.
were just stops. I thought these, because later on in the agenda, there is something about shelters.
Yes, go ahead, Jay.
I am going to be voting no against this because in my humble opinion, there's no reason to have a meeting after the vote. So I just want to make sure that's for the record that I will be voting on this.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly, go ahead.
What my concern is when it says that it's not budget, it's budget neutral. My concern is if you're going to run the bus on the same route past these stops, why are we eliminating the stops? I understand that it'll increase I know it'll reduce the time on the drive. I understand that as well. But I'm concerned about the fact, especially on Watley Avenue, you have the Johnson High School.
Mm-hmm.
You have seniors or juniors who have work release, and they may need this transportation just to get to work. I'm thinking about the economic concern, about the feasibility of how do I get to work if there's no bus stop.
You want to explain the reasoning, Mike, or?
As far as,
I can explain it.
Yeah, the reason we had to remove them is.
It has nothing to do with budget or finances. When CAT was created back in 1986 and in operation 1987, the small municipalities were afforded an opportunity to opt out of the transit district and the transit tax. Thunderbolt opted out, but for whatever reasons of successive administrations have allowed those stops in Thunderbolt to continue, believing them to somehow be grandfathered in. Well, we've had citizens raise the fact that Thunderbolt is receiving service, but they're not paying the tax. And finally, we were put in a position where we were compelled to remove the stops because, frankly, under the Constitution of Georgia and the statutes, the stop shouldn't be there. And when the mayor of Thunderbolt was notified that we were going to have to do this, it was laid out for her the steps they could take to come into the district and have the stops reinstated. And that is, they would have to petition the county commission to be added to the special transit district, and they'd have to enter into a contract with the county and CAT to provide the service, and then the stops can be restored. But it was a situation where we had to pull the stops because under the Georgia Constitution and under the CAT Enabling Act, the stops were illegal.
How long ago were they notified?
In May, I believe.
May of last year.
And also earlier in the year,
Yeah.
our former planning manager, when the citizens contacted us, we reached out.
We've tried to give them lots of notice and give them plenty of opportunity to change their mind.
Gotcha.
But we've decided finally that we just have to put a date certain on this to end it.
Gotcha. Understand.
So that's the point of this resolution.
And actually, I don't even think we need a motion there because we've already approved to remove the stops.
When
So
do we
can
approve to
go
remove
if
the
you want to
stops?
rescind the motion. This is more
Well,
informational. sense.
Jay had a question about that.
When do we
so-
approve the stops?
Removing the
When
stops.
do we approve the removal of the stops?
And I'm not sure we
Three
even
meetings
need to
ago, didn't we?
vote to approve them.
It
I
wasn't
think.
voted on by the board. We didn't have a date, but I think we voted to remove them.
it's never been voted on, we removed the stops. It was always postponed. You give me a date when we said it, and you give me the vote, now I'll.
Yeah, I thought we were still just waiting on a date, but we still don't actually have a date.
I don't think
so-
it hurts for us to go ahead and vote, but Ty, do we
No, I
need a vote?
can't recall precisely what occurred, but I believe that there was a vote to remove the stops at a time certain, and then at the next vote, at your instance, Mr. Durst, we decided to postpone that removal. And I think you do need a vote to set the new date certain in October.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I
But
think
what date did we?
the reason we postponed was because of the notifications we were trying to do to
Right.
work with the students and let give everybody plenty of time to make adjustments.
I asked this question
Go ahead,
last
Jay.
month. What date did we vote on it? That's all I asked. Because when I went through the last set of minutes this year, we never voted on it. We always postponed.
I can't remember,
So
honestly.
you
that's
tell me
the
what
case,
date
you
we
can vote
voted
on
on,
it
and
now.
I'm all clear with you.
I think that was the thought behind the action item, that we would vote and have this 45-day notice period.
Correct.
And discontinue the service.
And
in
there's a date for
October.
this?
It's in October 15th.
Oh, okay.
October 12th.
12.
I'm not up to that
Sorry.
page yet, sorry.
12th is a Friday, so
All right, then we have a motion and a second. So let's vote now. All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand, actually, it'd probably be easier. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Let me ask you a question, since we have at least two commissioners here. How long would it take them to get on the tax rolls if they wanted to replace those stops? Is that a once-a-year event, or?
They have to do it before the beginning of the, when he issues out the taxes. And I
Which
think
is
we're
what?
too late for that.
For last year, so they would
It-
have
They'll
to
be
wait
there the next
until
year.
next year.
It would be on next year's.
So they can't even put them back until July of next
So it
year?
won't be till next year.
Okay.
I think Terry has a little more.
Oh, good, Terry, I'm
So
sorry, I
the
didn't
tax
see you
assessors-
waving.
Yeah, the tax assessor's office has indicated that right now would be the best time to let them know if we were adding anybody to the roll. They have to vet the addresses, vet the property tax. So if Thunderbolt wanted to opt in and get on the rolls, fall would be when the tax assessor's office would want that instruction from Chatham County.
I think they
Cody,
sent
you
out
may
the
want to
final
bring
bill.
Or
that to
7-1,
people in Garden
yeah.
City if they want to add
It
those
won't be,
stops.
till-
that
it
we
won't
were
be till
talking
next year,
about.
because our next meeting until September the 13th.
And it would be effective 7/1/2020, so they would go on the
Right.
rolls, and we would begin service next July 1, if they made it to the rolls.
We would have to call the meeting Friday in order to make that happen.
But the
Because we
first,
don't meet until the 13th.
the first step has to be
Right.
taken by Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt,
Correct.
With the September 11th town hall meeting, what are we proposing to them as far as the stops are concerned? Because you mentioned the September 11th town meeting.
What we're gonna do is share the information that Terry just shared here in this meeting, that they're outside the service district, and the fact that, we're gonna have to pull the stops because of that, unless they opt in. So that's pretty much, we're gonna just give them the information and make sure that the public knows, that we're gonna pull the stops. We just don't want to-
We're gonna do a press release before their town meeting,
Yes.
so that if people live in Thunderbolt have an opinion about this,
Yes.
they can show up at that town
Absolutely.
meeting.
and the town of Thunderbolt has also given us a space. So between now, if the board approves, and the 12th, we will hold 2 to 3 public meetings, and also be there to communicate to the people who are impacted why and what we need to do as a community to have Thunderbolt opt in and restore the service.
And plus, there's information at the bus stops, at those 12 bus stops. We placed information at the bus stops to notify the public. So those notices have been out there for a while as well.
Catching up with the page, I'm on the wrong page. Power Transit, you want to go to the next one, Mike?
We didn't vote, did we?
Yes.
Or did
Yes,
we voted.
did.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request the board approve an intergovernmental agreement with Chatham County for paratransit service delivery. funding. CAT is, as you well know, CAT is required to provide complimentary paratransit service under 49 CFR Part 37 to include oversight and monitoring of any service provided by a private entity or another public entity to remain eligible for federal grant finance assistance necessary for operating and capital cost coverage at current service levels. So Chatham County provides funding for public transportation by levying a property tax within the special service district for support of fixed route transit services and allocating additional support from its general fund for paratransit services. So staff recommends the board approve the Chatham County CAT IGA with a delegation of authority to the CEO to execute the final agreement with any administrative adjustments required before legal counsel.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions, anyone?
Love to have it.
All the money.
No questions?
The language of this agreement you're comfortable with, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Remember the last, at the committee meeting, there was a conversation on the length of this agreement. It looks like it got bumped up to like, what, four years?
Yeah, when you with options.
Mm-hmm. And that's good.
That is good.
Great. Because that's got to do with grant funding and
Planning.
Very cool.
And Ty, you're all good with that?
Yes.
You've approved
A
it?
lot of this is amendments that I made to it.
Okay.
Is the county good with it?
And we're.
Helen is.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Terry, are we still in negotiations with Ms. Kramer and making sure that we're being reimbursed at the correct rate and everything?
Yes, ma'am. The mechanism changed 2 years ago, and this contract formally documents the procedures, the responsibilities, one party to the next, the reporting requirements, and just gives everybody a document to work from, but they are covering cost per budget and have been for the last 2 years.
There's more assurance that this is going to be paid in a timely manner.
We get the contract executed, yes.
Do we have a mechanism for reevaluating that reimbursement rate? Because we set with a bad reimbursement rate for years.
So that's when we changed the mechanism. We do a thorough budget estimate through our budget process that the county weighs in on and approves. They pay us 1/12 of the adopted budget each month, and there's a mechanism whereby if we're upside down or vice versa in July or August, there could be an adjustment. Last year it was $39,000.
Would you use that then at the end of the fiscal year to adjust the rate?
Yes.
For the next year?
Yes, well, the budget changes every year. So we do it through the budget, and then there's a mechanism where if the budget is not close to actual, if they overpay us, we pay them back, and if they underpay us, they cover the difference. And there's wording in the contract to allow for that.
Any other questions? All those in favor of approving the contract with the county, raise their hand. Looks unanimous, so that's no opposed, no abstained. Okay. Back to you, Mike, Executive Director's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, what I'd like to do, since we're welcoming Dr. Robinson to the board and welcoming back Commissioner Stone, I'd like to introduce some of our directors. We have our Marine Director, Jimmy Gumby, over there. We have our Safety Training Environmental Director, Erica Franklin, right here. Maintenance Director, Steve Bobright. And let's see, Operations Director, Wendy Art.
HR.
Our HR Director, I'm sorry, Tom.
I can't see who's behind me, so I know people I saw walk in.
Mr. Tundra Scott.
And I hope you all know all the board members.
Yes, at this point.
I'd also like to draw your attention to a flyer that was left with the board packet for our annual picnic in Low Country Boyle. Chocolate, if you could, we would love to have you all to attend. We had a good time last time we had this function. It's Sunday, October 20th. Even if you stop by for just a little while, I think it means a lot for the employees to see board members there, as well as the executive staff. So, well, please come.
Will it look like this? Because I will definitely be there.
It was delicious. They did a wonderful job. The food was delicious.
They're going to deliver that to your store.
Well, can you leave the beef and the pork out?
We can.
If you want oysters, be there early.
Okay. Okay.
Don't be last
We
at the table.
take special requests.
Okay.
But we had a good time, so please try and come out. I'll answer any questions you may have of the executive director's report.
Any questions for Mike? We would appreciate everybody being there. That includes everyone. Thank you. I can't see. You need a mirror up here to look behind me. Let's go to unit update, system delivery. Mike, you're up again. You might as well finish up.
Okay. All right. So service delivery packet or report is in your packet on your computer. A couple things I'd like to point out is we had an increase in ferry service for July, and we also had an increase in paratransit ridership, and a 13%, and we also a decrease in complaints. And I only bring it up to show that we turned the corner in some respects of the issues we had last summer, and it's reflected in those numbers. And at this point, I'll answer any questions you may have on service delivery.
There was a heat map of ridership. There was a table, and it had red colors, green colors, depending on ridership. Is that in here? Because I think I missed it.
It's a ridership report.
Yes, the ridership.
It's at the end of the file.
All right. Oh, it moved. Did it move?
Yep.
It did move. All right, cool. I like this one.
Good.
Any other questions? Commissioner Stone, go ahead.
You know, this was a trend when I was on the board before, but I don't know, it concerns me that we just constantly see on these fixed routes the ridership decreasing. I mean, how, and I don't want to belabor this, but I haven't been here in a couple of years. What are we doing to specifically address that?
Well, the main thing we're doing, we're in phase 2 of a route redesign that it is actually designed to increase ridership. That's something that we have a October 8th, I believe, is the workshop. Patricia, you want to share that a little bit?
Yes, sir, I will. We have hired a consultant to work with us on a comprehensive system redesign effort, and we've just completed phases 1 and 2. And on October 8th, we've scheduled a meeting with a consultant to come in for a board workshop. And prior to that, we can bring new board members, you all up to date on, what occurred during those 2 phases. And if necessary, too, we can put you in touch with the consultant in advance. We're working with a firm called Jarrett Walker and Associates, and they're working with a number of transportation systems around the country. And basically, where we are right now is the consultant, they need direction from the board. If the goal is to design a high coverage model for Chatham County or a high ridership model. And so the first 2 phases involve some public surveys that we put out to get general input from the public about concepts and what they want. So that's kind of how we're trying to address the issue.
If I want any more information, I'll, if it's all right, contact.
Yes, and we also have a website.
So I don't want to hold up
Yes.
a board meeting on this, but it is a concern to me that we've got to keep the ridership up, showing this community that we're running a transit system to move people where they need to be and not to run empty buses around Chatham County.
Any other questions for Mike?
If I could regress just a minute here, I realized that I introduced my directors to Dr. Robinson, but I did not introduce the chief. So I know you may have already met them before the meeting, but our chief financial officer is Ms. Terry Harrison.
Good morning.
And our chief strategy officer is Patricia Harris-Moorhead. I apologize for that oversight.
You're all set? System development. Patricia, speaking of.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, we've scheduled a date, October 8th, for Michelle to come in for a second board workshop. So we really do hope that you all can join us on that date. It will be at Cat Central, and Beverly will send out additional details. And Michelle is also trying to contact you all to kind of talk with you about what has taken place. And so I encourage you, if you've gotten an email from her or a phone call, please return her call, because she wants to provide as much information as possible prior to that workshop. We've established a website where we have lots of great information on the project. We've branded it Let's Go. And so Beverly, I can send Beverly information and she can get it out to you, the links. But there's some great reports there. The very first report was a choices report, which basically gave an update on what we're currently doing, with the transit system. And then the second report explored those two concepts, and then gave a summary of the public opinion, the outreach that we did, and the results of that survey.
Excuse me, Patricia, the hours for that October 8th,
we were talking about starting at 11, I believe.
11 to 2, I think, is what we scheduled. Thank you.
And what our shop has been doing is basically continuing to try to promote the positive things that are going on here at CAT. Eric has been just wonderful, being proactive and getting those news releases out. Sarah's done an awesome job on social media. And then in our report, there's a list of those publications that we're working on. We've just signed off on our new system map, and so we've given Smart Maps, the contractor that you all approved a couple of months ago, the okay to make the final changes on our system map. One of the great features on that system map that I'm really proud of is we created a frequency chart in one space on the map where we listed all of the current routes, and we listed their frequency, so that when we go back out there into the community with our Let's Go campaign, John Q. Public can kind of look in one place and go, oh, this route only has a frequency of every 90 minutes or every 120 minutes. So that automatically will indicate to John Q. Public that we need to make some improvements with the transportation network. And so that's it in a nutshell that I wanted to share, but if you have questions, please let me know.
There was a big tick in website users, I believe, on July 31st. Do you know what that's about?
I think it's basically, we've been really trying to put more information out there, more news releases, and come up with unique social media tweaks. And so I can't answer specifically what it was, but yeah, that's why we put that report in there, so that you all can see the spikes.
Any other questions for Patricia? Any other questions? Ms. Terry?
Good morning, and the financial update is in your package. We have started a new fiscal year, so the financial results are just 1 month. As the trends develop and scheduled usually in October and November, we'll do a budget amendment to incorporate the difference in our estimated tax digest and a true increase. So we'll pick up a couple of $100,000 on growth that was higher than our estimate. Also, I added the information requested last month on the contract labor, the 3 positions that we had in July under contract labor. And this month, the ridership report is included with this report. To Ms. Stone's earlier question, I'd like to see, and I'll ask staff to take a deep dive into those 5 routes that have those double-digit decreases for the core route, and I'll report back to this group if we find any trends. And also with the agency rate and the ridership on SSU, that's kind of following the enrollment.
And I mean, also looking at the airport shuttle.
Yep.
I think we talked about that a couple of years ago, if that was really productive, but that's a concern of mine. I mean, that's a long way to be sending buses if it's not a productive route, if we're not assisting anyone.
There were those 5 in the core routes that had unusually high decreases in July, so we'll take a look at those.
Because that's the time people are traveling, so you would think if any time that the airport shuttle would be busy, it would be during the summer months, but I don't know. It's just a concern.
I'd be happy to take any questions.
And we're planning, as a note, we're going to be doing our long-term strategy starting November, and probably we'll start looking at budget numbers in January or February for those workshops. So have those on your minds for upcoming events.
I'm not a financially savvy person, but I think we should take note of this sentence. On July 26th, or June 26th, Pat was able to make a payment that reduced the outstanding balance of the line of credit to 0.
Yes.
That was, am I correct? That's a fairly big deal.
Yes.
So it's the second year in a row that we've been able to end the year and pay that line down to 0. It's more monumental because this past fiscal year we made our last $1 million payment on the long-term debt. So we're going into FY20 with 0 balance sheet debt from the bank and the opportunity to use that $1.5 million for August, September, and October as intended for the low transit tax receipts.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know that you projected the annual end of the financial report for the end of the fiscal year with only 1 month of data.
Yes.
But I'm encouraged to see that it looks like you could put another almost $500,000 into the reserves.
Depending on the strategic initiatives and how we move forward with those, yes, sir.
I understand.
Yep.
But, you know, how many years have you been able to project that even at this point?
Just last year and this year.
Last year and this year?
Yeah.
To also add on top of that,
Oh,
so, sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, what did we wind up, or have we just finished the totals on that yet? What did we put into the reserves?
We're still in process, and as the paratransit contract rolls to execution, so cash is different than balance sheet position. So the cash that we need from that contract will allow us to make the final shift from operating cash to the Georgia fund for the increase in reserve for last year. I can commit to the 250. I need to let the audit roll.
But it could be more?
It could be, yes, sir.
So we're over $1 million in reserves?
Yes.
For the first time since?
Ever.
Cool.
Any other questions for Terry?
I'm not sure if this is a question for Terry, but it is in the pack that's in the same area. The mobile ticketing and the ITS system, I just wanted to get kind of like a checkup on how those RFPs are coming.
So the ITS, the ADL system, the 3 proposers that were judged by the evaluation committee as the best made presentations last month. So the evaluation committee is all but done with their process. And we expect to be able to bring a preferred proposer to the board in October or November, depending on the FTA timing of the grant funding.
Okay.
We don't want to award a contract until we have the money to pay the contractor. So we're waiting on the funding to roll through the FTA computer system. And as soon as that happens and we've got the money available, we will bring a recommended vendor to this group.
That's cool.
October and November. So the mobile ticketing, there was a shift. Initially, we were going to do an RFP in order to apply some qualitative decision making. But because of the price, we took quotes, and the quotes have been received and are being looked at internally by the chiefs. So we should have a decision about that over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Cool.
And then the short-term fix is we're also working on a page for the website where basically people can order tickets. And so we're still pursuing that too, because we should be able to have that up in probably the next 30 days.
Any other questions? I know it's not on the agenda, but we do have a report from Mr. Backer. Does anybody have any questions for him, since we do have him here today? There's an update in your board package. There was also one from Pat and Boggs, but we have no one here to ask questions to.
I'm here to choose it free.
I'm sorry. No one told me. Excuse me. Is that how we got the package page today to look at?
No.
No.
No, that just came today? Okay. Does anybody have any questions for our two lobby groups? Okay.
Keep up the great work.
Well, let's chase some money. All right, next on the agenda, I'm going to move that we go to executive session, so I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in
Personnel
favor?
matters.
Yes, sir.
For what?
All those in favor?
For personnel.
We need a vote. All those in favor? Okay, for a few minutes to, it should not be long. Chairman, I don't think I've met you before. I'm new to this position, but been on the board for 2 years.